It's time for our next guest. And let me ask you, do you believe in psychic mediums? This guy has spent time with more than 30 mediums from all across the world, and he's written a fascinating book about it. Please say a big hello to the author of Conversations with Mediums, Scott Podmore.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Now, you've got to know, Scott, that women love mediums.
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
And we are two women that are fascinated by all things clairvoyant.
Yes.
I'm really torn because I think it might be a crock of shit, the whole thing. But I was a fervent believer and
Definitely.
hander over of hard-earned casher.
Yes.
Your book has 13 interviews with some of the biggest, most wealthy and famous psychics in the world today.
It does. And some not so
And
rich.
some not
Yep.
so, including John Edward, which seems to be the jewel in the crown.
Yes.
At the end of your book, can you say categorically whether or not there is such a thing as the gift of mediumship?
I can. I definitely think it's the real deal. I think it's a little bit misguided in a lot of ways, in that if every Tom, Dick and Harry thinks they're a medium all of a sudden, just because they might have a spiritual experience.
Right.
Or some sort of paranormal experience.
Or a coincidence?
Or a coincidence, that's right. But I found the ones I put in the book in the end were the ones I was convinced with, and I thought provided a really good balance.
So do you think that there is such a thing as this sort of gift, but it's rare?
Yeah, I do. So much compelling evidence, I guess, for me. I guess I had my head buried in it for 2.5 years, and I did a fair bit of research early on. And there were personal incidents that happened where I never really asked for a reading, but sometimes that presented, and I welcomed it. Just as an example, I'd started the book, and I walked past this gelati shop that I'd been to with a friend who'd passed over a couple of years earlier, and we were there, and I'll never forget the day. It was just a funny day. He was a really funny guy, and I can remember walking past it at this time, and I looked at it, I thought of him, and I saw he was a Greek guy. I looked at a sticker on the ground. It was a Greek sticker, and it was one of those things all along throughout the interviews. They said to look for the signs. That was one of the big takeaways that we don't just pay attention to. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, I was interviewing another medium, and they stopped in their tracks and just said, did you have a friend, a big Greek guy who's passed over? And I said, yeah. She said, he's got his hand on your shoulder and he's got a gelati in his hand.
Wow.
So how that can't be known
amazing.
to anyone other than you.
Well, it's just specific, you know. It's. I guess it's
Very
those
specific.
Yeah, those specific. Of a million things she could have told me.
Can you say which medium that was?
That was Kerry Alexander. She's actually a local Melbourne medium.
That sounds really remarkable.
Scott Podmore is our special guest. He's written a new book on mediums. Now, what do you say to the non-believers, Scott?
There's obviously a stigma.
Yes.
There's always been two camps, and it's one of those things that we've always been conditioned to almost mock as well.
Yeah.
This is a thing. Because there's so much interest, and this is the interesting thing, there is a real shift. I guess there's that side of the camp, and there are the believers, and then there are a really big mass of people now in the middle.
I think maybe I'm in the middle.
I mean, this book itself is actually more a presentation of interviews where
Yes.
I've gone in with an open mind, but I've asked some really considered questions to see if there are any commonalities or any disagreements. And it's not about beating the drum. It's about looking at it and saying, okay, it's almost like cherry picking. And I find people come back to me and say, this relates to me, but that doesn't. Most of it's positive.
Did
I
you
guess.
include some negatives in your book?
I did.
Yeah.
It wasn't all fluffy. It was.
No.
We covered things like suicide and fraudulent mediums,
Yeah.
and we had some heated discussions there, particularly with the because I covered a lot of different types like trance mediumship and EVP and the old-fashioned seance physical mediumship.
Oh my gosh,
right?
how fascinating!
It's a fascinating
It was
book.
fascinating. That was the one that was a little bit freaky, where I nearly ran out of the room screaming for mum.
So you did a seance. You're in a seance situation where you have your finger on the glass.
Not quite like that, but very similar to that. I had to cable tie this guy, and I mean, it makes me feel sick saying this.
Oh, so
God.
that you knew that he couldn't be doing anything swift with his hands.
Yeah, that's
or
right.
whatever.
Oh, my God. So what happened? You cable tied him and then what happened?
There were things that happened that had me scratching my head.
Like what? What's one thing that
Yeah.
happened that had you
I guess
scratching?
because it was in a pitch dark room, and I'm with complete strangers, really.
So
in
you couldn't see
Sydney.
you couldn't even see your hand in front of your face.
No, yeah, that was the setting. The temperature changed, and there was no air conditioning. It really heated up at one moment, and then there were lights.
You can't explain
describe
it.
I can't. And the fact that there was a woman there who I spoke to afterwards, she was really emotional and convinced that it was a husband who presented during the year. Like, I've written about it in the book. I've reviewed the experience, so I won't give it all away here. But it was one of those things where it just didn't add up. But then again, there were too many things that happened where I think, well, who am I to judge,
Yeah,
really?
the world is a big and mysterious place.
And
Yeah.
that's
Funny,
it.
it's as simple as I sort of feel like we've got to go somewhere after we die, and
Yep.
maybe people can talk to us.
It's a great read, Conversations with Mediums. You will churn through that. Trust me, it's brilliant. Thanks for joining us, Scott Podmore.
No, thank you very much for having me.
Across Melbourne, Chrissie and Jane on Mix 101.1.